Good morning. We good to go back there? Yes, thumbs up, I like that. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning class with Guy Finley. We are live here in Merlin, Oregon. Hello to our in-person audience. Hello to our online audience. Glad you all joined us today. If you're new here or if this is your first time, the format for today is that in just a moment, Guy will come on and give an hour-long talk. Take a short break, and we'll come back for part 2 of class, which is an open Q&A dialogue with everyone in the room, everyone online, and I'll tell you more about that when we get to that point. So altogether, we'll go to about 11 or 11:30 Pacific time here. So hope you can stay with us for the whole time. If not, this is all being recorded, and you can go back to one of our social media channels later to listen to the replay or watch it whenever you like. For you in the room, if you brought a cell phone with you today, if you could just check really quick to make sure that it's off or in silent mode, that would be great, not to disturb the class. And for you online, if you have any tech issues during class, just reach out to us in the chat area, the question area, send a note to question@guyfinley.org or support@guyfinley.org. Actually, either one of those will work, and I'll do my best to help you. All right, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and read the title for today and the first key lesson, and then I'll hand it over to Guy. Our topic for today is how to stay cool, calm, and collected in the middle of any challenging moment. And here's the key lesson. There's no distance, no time or space in seeing what is, and what is speaks for itself, which means no thought is required to understand what is being revealed in the space of some troubling time. This clarity is choiceless strength, as well as its right use, all at the same time.
Good morning. And good morning and welcome to all of you joining us online, whatever day or time it might be if it's not with us in the moment of this transmission. The key lesson speaks of a clarity that is choiceless, that is a form of perfect strength, as well as its right use at the right time. So many different ways that I want to introduce the material for you today. But suffice it to say that I'm going to kind of go up and down in terms of what it's possible for a person to intellectually grasp versus hearing and seeing what is being said as true in the moment it's being spoken, which is the actual transmission, which, by the way, is the reason for a real school. So knowing that we are all at different levels as we are, I have to present material that is at once within the reach of everyone who is just setting out on the road, because we can describe and look at experiences that are very common to every last human being on the planet. And then at the same time, I have to give you something by which you can start to understand that knowledge at any point is always incomplete, and that there's a completely different relationship that you can have with the moment and what it is trying to convey to you. That in the very realization of that relationship in real time, something is transmitted, something changes on the spot. So to set the stage, as strange as the transition may seem, most of us know something of the story of the prodigal son, do we not? Story about a man who leaves his father's house, wanders out looking for a way to make something of himself in the world so that he could have his own, took what his father gave him and squandered it, and then at some point, ever so quickly, he finds himself where? Finds himself basically in a pit, wishing that he could have even the corn husks that the pigs eat because he was starving, which is an allusion to the fact that he had run out of ways to give himself the nourishment at every level that he needed. So at what point do you think, or I should say, during that point, what do you think was his realization at that point? What do you think he found out right there at the bottom of things? Because that would be the bottom of things, wouldn't it? Wishing that you could have even what the pigs eat. What do you think that happens at the bottom of that? You've all been there. I'm just leading you into seeing something. We've all been at the bottom of something, haven't we? Not the bottom for sure, but some bottom. Here's what he realized. I'm here because I've made a lot of bad choices. And worse, I'm here because I made bad choices that I thought were good choices. Because why would I choose anything other than the very best choice I have in that moment? And this is where it led me. Can you see that? So how many of you have made some bad choices in your life? But when you make bad choices, do you know you're making bad choices? Do you? Out loud so that all the men and women in the world might hear it. When I make a bad choice, do I know I'm making a bad choice? An addict pumps herself with one thing or the other. A person running around like a mad chicken with its head, all that. Does that person have any idea that they are enacting the choice they've made? No. Well, stop it. St. Paul, I don't do the good I would, I do the evil I wouldn't. Somehow I make choices that are against myself, in spite of the fact that I'm beginning to realize that those choices actually aren't good for me, yet I'm still compelled to make them. This is what we're going to look at together, if you're interested. And to set the stage, which I've just done, I want to read something to you. I don't know how to pronounce some of these words. It's from a Buddhist teaching, actually, called the Genjo Koan, something like that. And it speaks of what we're talking about, is how is it that I can continue to do in the moment, the things in the moment that seem most wise for me to do, and then it turns out that it wasn't wise. At best, it was incomplete. At worst, it was a train wreck in slow motion. Listen to this. Here's a word I've never used in a talk. Don't get flummoxed. I have no idea where these words come from. This is it, ever so briefly. Although actualized immediately, the inconceivable, meaning how can I make choices other than the ones I'm compelled to make? The inconceivable may not be distinctly apparent. Its appearance is beyond your knowledge. Something is beyond my knowledge that if I could actualize it immediately, would allow me not to make mistakes based on the knowledge that I believe is true in that moment. Follow me? Zen master Baochi of Mount Mayu, I think they made these words up, was fanning himself. I'm acting it out for you. A monk approached and said, Master, according to the teachings, the nature of wind is permanent, and there is no place that it doesn't reach. Why then, Master, are you fanning yourself? Master replies, although you understand that the nature of wind is permanent, you do not understand the meaning of its reaching everywhere. Monk says, what is the meaning of it reaching everywhere? And the master just kept fanning himself. Now, I know this is a little subtle for most of us, but what the master was teaching is that though the wind is everywhere, the principle of it, it requires sometimes in places an instrument of itself, because without something to instrument it in that time and place, it's not reaching there, even though it was there, as evidenced by the fact of what I'm doing creates the wind. But am I creating the wind, or am I bringing about conditions under which suddenly there is a manifestation of this permanent wind, only now it is temporary in my life? Do you understand it? This is something critical for you to grasp. I know it's tough. I'm going to explain it in greater depth for those of you that need to fan yourselves because you're overheating in the moment. What the Master was saying is that enlightenment is everywhere. It's not waiting for you someplace. It's not born out of some knowledge that you're going to acquire, some disciplined action that you take. That this divine wisdom and its correct transmission, that's what the Master was doing. He was transmitting to the monk something the monk couldn't see, because all the monk could see was what his mind believes that the wind is everywhere means. You have ideas that enlightenment is everywhere, but you don't understand it's right where you are all the time until there is a certain experience that takes place that can only be transmitted through a direct relationship with the moment itself. Here's the point. Correct action at the right time is wisdom. Correct action at the right time is wisdom. Can you grasp that? And that wisdom, that correct action that gives rise to wisdom, that wisdom is freedom. Freedom from what? What is it that I need to be freed from? This is what everyone wants to know. How do I free myself from wrong choices? How do I free myself from these reactions? How do I free myself in the moment when everything seems to be collapsing in and on me? And instead of being calm and collected, I'm a conflicted mess, lashing out at everyone and everything in order to try to find some path through that pain that will deliver me from what I see is true in that moment. But if enlightenment is everywhere, if God is ubiquitous, if truth and light is everlasting and always, then I'm everlastingly and always in that light. But where is that light in those moments where all I see is darkness and I keep trying to make choices that will deliver me from what is obviously all that I see, but not all there is to see? Do we set the stage? I love that. Master sitting there exhibiting, transmitting the Buddha Dharma, transmitting the truth without saying a word. And then the rest of that koan goes, and suddenly the monk was awakened. Suddenly he saw something that he couldn't have seen other than the exact conditions that revealed to him what the real truth was. He couldn't come to it through thought, could he? All right. 14 minutes. A couple stories to tell you, some things to look at together, and hopefully, if nothing else, a bit of that aha, a bit of that moment where suddenly, wow, I didn't see that because it wasn't in my awareness at the moment to see it until you reminded me that it is already in my awareness. I just need to be in the right place at the right time so that that wisdom can express itself in me, through me, and for all else. Yes? Apprentice angel. Those of you who don't know, I use the story of apprentice angel and senior angel as instruments of a certain bifurcated consciousness. The apprentice angel, like would-be aspirants, like that young monk, wanting to grow wings so that he could rise above his insistence and his confusion. And by the way, all confusion is born out of insistence. All confusion is born out of insistence. You have to see it for yourself. If I insist, can I see? If I can't see, do I struggle? If I struggle, what am I struggling with? What's right in front of my eyes, except I can't see it. That's confusion. They're down here, they always go to the same place, basically, because all the great lessons in heaven are on this earth, which happens to be true. And they study the human beings down there and what the human beings are going through. The senior angel wanting to help the apprentice angel realize that everything he's seeing down there is already a part of himself. He rose above it, but he doesn't understand it completely. Would that be a good description? You've seen things, but you don't understand it completely. So they're sitting there with their legs hanging over a cloud, as it were, looking down on the earth, and they can see everywhere all at once, but they focus in, senior angel always showing the apprentice angel where to put his attention, and they look down, and there's a bunch of human beings hanging out, maybe at a park or in the city, and they're all walking along, but while they're walking along, all of them seem to be kicking something up into the air. The apprentice angel says, Master, what is all that stuff? What's all that dust? Or whatever it is on the ground that's being kicked up as they walk along. And strangely enough, why would they be picking that dust up and putting it into bags, big bags that they're carrying over their shoulder, and that they're fighting with others over who can get the most dust? What is that? He asked in lower tones. Why are they fighting with each other to carry something like that? The senior angel says, what you need to understand is that what you're looking at is the ashes, the lifeless remains of what's left from their past choices that changed nothing about their lives and this world. That's what you're seeing being kicked up, and that's what you're seeing being picked up, is the worthless remains, the ashes of choices that changed nothing in their life. But why would they do that? Said the apprentice angel. Wouldn't you, if you were the apprentice angel, wouldn't you think, well, why in the name of God would they do that? Yes or no? Why are they collecting it? And the senior angel said, because they take it home, and in their misunderstanding, they use it to fertilize their hopes that some other choice they're going to make is going to free them. I tell you, that's a true story. Let's bring up the second key lesson. I'll help you understand it more deeply with the next key lesson. I can't urge you enough to contemplate this. The misunderstanding of tension gives birth to anxious, misguided choices. And so it is wisely said, the sins of the father are visited upon his sons and daughters. The misunderstanding of tension gives rise to anxious, misguided choices. And so it's wisely said, the sins of the father are visited upon his sons and daughters. That's right out of Scripture, isn't it? But what has that got to do with the misunderstanding of tension giving rise to misguided choices? When do you and I make misguided choices? Hello? When I'm tense and anxious, when I'm afraid. That's where all of my choices come from. And all I've known my whole life are the choices that I've seen every other human being through history, and regardless of what I've read, is make the same choices. So what other choices do I have? This is what our study is today. I was laying in bed last night. This is a segue, but you'll understand it. I was laying in bed last night. I often, prior to giving a talk, I'm letting my mind develop what it wants to develop. I'm waiting for a certain understanding to come, part of the transaction of the attention and the request it makes to the moment when it's made properly. And a thought came to me. I want to share it with you. I didn't have time to pass it along to Kate and the crew, but just listen to it, okay? Please let it fall on the right part of you. It almost made me sit up. Imagine for a moment if everyone in the world suddenly realized that there was nothing in this world they could give themselves, that they could choose for themselves from this world, that would ever free them from fear, anger, greed, and their own insatiable appetites. Imagine for a moment if everyone in the world suddenly had the epiphany that there was nothing in this world that they could choose from this world that was going to free them from fear, anger, and anxiety. What kind of world would that be? That's everything that you're working for. That's why the work was sown into this planet when it was sown. That's why every master teacher, every son and daughter of God that ever walked this planet, that's all they were trying to do, was to help a man or a woman just think for a split second. What is the world I've made for myself from the choices that I've been given to make every time some kind of anger, anxiety, fear, or ambition appears in my life? What if in that moment, instead of making the choice given to me by that nature, I was able to see it so clearly that I would realize that was no choice at all. No choice at all. What would my life be like? And then you can entertain that. Can you feel that? Yes or no? My God, it would be heaven on earth. No human being could hurt another human being. Because the only time we hurt another human being is when our ambition to get above them or to stop them from getting above us. There could be no anger, because what am I angry about? Other than something challenging the choices I've made up to that moment and then proving it to be useless. The whole world would suddenly grow silent. You would be silent. And in that sweet silence, a kind of surrender to another understanding that allowed you to see that everything that's wrong with my life, with your life, is born of a choice that I was given to make that I didn't know I was given, and that I made it with my eyes closed and then defended the choice that was made for me. Staggering, I think. You can't serve two masters. You'll love one and despise the other. The bottom line being that you're in the service of mammon, insatiable appetite. Isn't that what every choice that comes to us in any given moment, not just bad ones, isn't it? How do I serve this appetite I have for more of what didn't make me happy, or to escape that which seems to be taking my happiness from me? Isn't that true? Now, sitting here, can you see just for a moment? That's the best I can hope for. Can you see for just a moment? Wow, you know what? What would happen if the next time I started to get angry or anxious or afraid? What would happen if I recognized that something is compelling me to choose from that negativity, to choose from that sense of being incomplete, to choose from an insatiable appetite that has never sated itself with every choice it can make? What if I could see that? Now here's the caveat. Are you ready? This is what St. Paul was talking about. And then be willing to embrace the truth that I see. Because now I can say I see that, just like the young monk could say, well, I see wind is everywhere, but why are you fanning yourself? I can see beyond the shadow of a doubt that until each and every last one of these choices that you and I make, till I see that those choices are a creation of these negative reactions, what could possibly happen from those choices other than the constant reincarnation of misshapen, corrupted actions? Do you see what I'm saying? So if that's going to change, what has to change? What has to change? Really, did I lead you to the desert and drop you off there? I have to start seeing for myself the truth of the moment where these choices seem to appear, and what it is that's making those choices for me. Do I not have to see that if I'm ever going to have any hope? Yes. How could that happen? Because you know better. Every last one of you, especially the hundreds of you that have been studying with me online here for all this time, maybe thousands, probably. You know better than to hate. You know better than to revisit those times in your past where you felt like you were a victim or something unfair was done to you. And when you feel and revisit those times, what does that mind do that you, without knowing, identified with? What does that mind do when it revisits the very things it doesn't want? What does that mind do when it revisits the very thing it doesn't want? Who can tell me? We're talking about it. It tries to figure out a choice in order to escape where it's taken itself. Because it believes where it's taken itself is into some place and time outside of itself. But is that what I'm visiting when I'm reliving the past? Some time and place outside of myself? Or am I revisiting, or is something bringing me to revisit one of my own memories, one of my own incomplete experiences? That's the case, isn't it? How do I ever get to the place where if I understand all of this, please bring up the next key lesson. Look how simple that is. Perfect self-knowledge is peace. Perfect self-knowledge is how to stay cool, calm, and collected in the middle of any challenging moment. How many of you would like to have perfect peace? Well, it comes at a cost, doesn't it? It comes at the cost of perfect self-knowledge. Now we have to segue here. But I almost have perfect self-knowledge. Don't I? Don't you? Just ask me. Only you don't even have to ask me. All you have to do is something that I didn't ask you to do, and then I will share with you my perfect self-knowledge. Yes or no? In the form of a lashing, in the form of brooding, in the form of showing you my contempt without actually showing it. Because spiritual people don't show contempt. They believe their contempt is valid. And that if everyone could recognize how valid you are to be negative, they would stop making you negative. How's that going? How do I realize this new kind of transactional wisdom? Please, You couldn't hear it online, but one of the gals back there had something going on, and it was echoing me, mocking me. What is the nature of this transactional wisdom? I showed you the idea, didn't I, when that story? Transactional wisdom. No difference between the action that's taken and the wisdom that it reveals. How do I realize that level of wisdom? I don't know. A long time ago, Mr. Howard told this wonderful little story. We've often mentioned it here. He called it How the Wise Man Became Wise. And ever so quickly, the answer that he gave was, and it was stunning back in the day, even though one doesn't understand it, I might add. He said the way the wise man became wise was he stopped answering his own questions. Now you hear something like that and you go, that's pretty cool. Because it implies that what I answer isn't wise, and what I'm trying to find through my answer can't lead me to wisdom. I became wise because I simply realized that I can't answer my own questions. Yes, you understand that much. But why? I mean, you need to to what end? Here I am. What would happen to me if I actually stopped answering my own questions? All I know to do, I am in a constant state of questioning everything and everyone about life. Am I not? I wake up in the morning. Why do I have to get up? I sit at my desk. Why do I have to be here? Why don't I have more money? Why are people like this? What's going to happen if that? Oh my God, you're right, that could happen, so better be prepared. Well, how do I get prepared? It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? It is a torment passing itself off as the temptation to be free from the torment that's causing it. I'm just picking up certain impressions. You know, some of you, it's like I have a really bad toothache, I'm in the dentist chair, and I want to run. Because I can't stand hearing and seeing what is true about these aches that are my daily visitors, because if I really understand this transactional wisdom, it's going to require another kind of action and understanding that I don't want to pay for. Why do you think people leave the truth? Why do you think they crucified Christ? Every time you turn your back on the light of any form of revelation, you are crucifying the Christ. That's a fact. Because it is the light of Christ that reveals to us, it is the light of the true moment, it is the light of this transactional wisdom, that which the observer and the observed see as a singularity that creates the transformation and the creation of a new order of self, and you turn your back on that, what are you turning your back on? You are denying the very gift of that moment in which that wisdom could release you from the lack of calm and being collected in such moments. Yes? So when do we ask all of these questions that now we realize we can't answer? I'll say it again. When do we ask all of these questions that we're starting to realize if we want to be free, if we want to be wise, we can't answer them? When do we ask all of these questions? When we're secure and happy? Gosh, why am I so happy? Why do I feel so secure right now? These questions don't come to mind, do they? If they do, you really need a doctor. No, they come up when what? When I'm frightened, when I'm discontent, when everything seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. That's when I pull out my basket of questions. And God knows I have do you have a basket of questions? Do you realize, you want to hear something interesting? This is a whole other talk. Do you know that, do you know that human beings on this planet have never asked a new question? Don't you think when you're asking the question that you're asking a new question? Yes or no? And why am I think I'm asking a new question? Because this seems like a new moment. Even though it's you that did the same thing, my question is, why do you keep doing the same thing? As if somehow the me experiencing you is different than the you being experienced. I'm always asking what I think is a new question, and new questions are vital to me, aren't they? Why? Because out of new questions come new choices. Out of new choices comes what? New hope. Out of new hope comes what? Uh-oh. Out of new hope comes like a kind of a slow-moving train wreck. The fact, what is an OMG moment other than the fact of realizing that my choices led me right to this place that I'm in right now? Now you say, no, it was your choice. If you're married, have children, it was your choice. You chose this for me. This is why, by the way, anytime you say that, you're a coward. Just to make more friends out there. I start asking questions when the moment proves that the result of the action I took from my former choice has proven to be the source of the conflict I'm in right now. I'm not saying, for instance, there's anything wrong with saving money. You're a fool if you don't, to tell you the truth. But when you believe that whatever you're able to save at whatever level is the same as your security, you have made a monumental mistake. And why? Because your security is not born out of the possessions. Your security is born out of a sense of self that's identified with some possession, and every possession in this world is a possession of this world. And when conditions change, the positions and the possessions disappear just like that. And you've seen it 1,000 times. Isn't every sudden, oh, what just happened? Isn't it the sudden revelation that the kingdom I built for myself has collapsed? The hordes came from God knows where to do God knows what, and all I'm left with is trying to protect myself? And what am I trying to protect? Am I trying to protect myself? Am I trying to protect myself, or am I trying to protect something I'm identified with, born of some choice that I was identified, that brought me the feeling of the hordes on the horizon? Do you see it with me? Now, if I see all of that, part of what starts to happen is you go, oh, a new OMG. If you see any of this, now you enter into the shoes of St. Paul, meaning into the shoes of that transactional wisdom. Transactional wisdom, I don't do the good I would. I do what I don't want to do. I don't choose what's good for me. I choose what's bad for me. Now I'm starting to, for a split second, understand when these moments come. You know, all I've ever known to do when I look at my relationships, my money, my body, I look at my face, not getting younger, all I know to do when I see something like that is have what takes place. I have a reaction, don't I? And the reaction gives rise to what? Choices. Choices. What am I going to do? How do I do it? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? Why doesn't anybody love me? Why don't I love myself? All these questions. And at a certain point, you have to reach this. You realize, you know what? I'm starting to run out of choices. Not just the sands of time, you understand? Which is where all of the seeming choices are contained. There are as many choices a human being believes are real as there are fears that he or she isn't immortal and must create for themselves their own eternity. Oh my God, I'm running out of choices. Because I'm sitting here, I look at the news. The choice was always made, oh, you're the, no, that, what, oh, you better join make a flag, get a flag. I'm going to do that because the choice, that's the only choice I've got. And then you make those choices. And when you do, by the way, make them 1,000%. So that when you get to the end of 1,000%, you realize that was 100% a mistaken idea. Because I didn't free myself from anything. In fact, all I did was exacerbate everything I was connected with, because the more you resist something, the stronger what you resist grows. That's a law. I'm running out of choices. Oh, wait a minute, my heart is starting to, I need a defibrillator. Because all I know are the choices I know. Those are the only choices I know. When I'm afraid, all I know how to ask myself is, what do I have to do to get rid of fear? In fact, if I'm really honest, I start to recognize beyond the shadow of a doubt that all of these choices have to have been an illusion. Because if they were real choices, they would have brought about something that was real, listen, in terms of bringing an end to this unabated relationship I have with these reactions, that when they come, does not every negative reaction contain in it, there is a consequence here, so you better get busy and make a choice that's going to save you from it. Is not every reaction like that? Does it not come with a set of consequences? Yes or no? So here's the mind. It's looking at the consequences of what? The consequences of the moment. You know what the consequence of the real moment is? Wait a minute. Wait for it. A transactional wisdom born of understanding that everything that is needed is always right where you are, but sometimes it needs an instrument to be able to manifest itself in that same moment. Please, I'm trying to put together that koan for you into something tangible. Are we succeeding at this? If it's the reaction that gives rise to these choices, is it? Is it not the negative reaction that gives rise to my library of choices, yes or no? Yes. Out loud? Yes. Then how can these choices release me from my reactions? Hello? Can they? No. Say it out loud. No. Do you know why I ask people to do that? Not just to keep you awake. Because you need to feel, hear, see, taste, touch every truth that you recognize, no matter how dimly it is that you recognize it. You strengthen in yourself your cooperation and acceptance of what is true. In the old traditions, you see, in the old Eastern traditions, they call it Baban, you see these men and women, it's all mechanical now, it's all a bunch of malarkey for the most part. This is the involuntary reaction to hearing something true. Nodding yes. That's why I ask you to agree or disagree, as it were, so that you can feel that. Is it true or not? If every bad choice I've ever made, when an addict starts whatever he or she starts, thinking about this more, eating this, running there, rushing is an addiction. When an addict is caught in the moment of an addiction, is he or she thinking, this is good for me? Well, they're not thinking it's good for me, but the choice in that moment is binary. All we have is binary choices in the moment of some resistance. Let it sink in. Moment comes, oh, no. And as a rule, wouldn't it be weird if everywhere you walk around, men and women were actually speaking out loud their reactions? That's why they put people away. Because eventually they can't control the way they manifest these reactions. You and I, we just go like that. And eventually, oh no, and eventually, you see it. Because personality begins to wear out of its capacity to contain the conflict. And when it can no longer hold that conflict in place, what happens to that conflict? Look at the world. Reactions give rise to what? Choices. My choices are born of my reaction. If my choice is born of my reaction, can my reaction ever free me from the experience of that choice in the moment, let alone what it creates? Yes or no? Well, what's going to happen? It must mean, if you're following me, that I make this choice in the moment, in quotes. I'm using I. Something in me makes this choice in the moment to free myself from my own negative reaction, when the reason I'm having that negative reaction is because a choice that I've made has been challenged. See, when you make a choice, do you understand? How do I explain this to you? I make a choice. On what basis do I make a choice? Or I'll say it otherwise, where do I get my choices from? That's a better question. Do you make choices? Do you have a choice store? Do you? Yes, I do. I've got a choice store. Mostly a discount store, but I've got one. What's in my choice store? The past. Everything on the shelves of this order of self is the content of some other experience born of some other choice that not just I made in my lifetime, but that human beings have been making for millennia. That's the store of my choice. And do I take myself to that store of choice? Or when a moment happens, do I find myself with a couple of shopping bags walking through all of these shelves looking for whatever the right way to be the answer in that moment? Isn't that what happens? So I'm transported to the store of choice. I don't even know how I got there. But the problem is not so much that I'm transported there, although one day I have to actually see that take place, which you can, is that everything on the shelves are binary. Everything on the shelf of choice is binary because everything on the shelves in choice store are born out of what? Choices. Fight or flight. Those are my choices. In a moment that's unwanted, tell me some other choice you have. I'm challenging you lightly. Can you think of anything else? Well, what are some of the fight choices? You're not going to talk to me like that. I'm going to figure out how to way to make so much money that you'll follow in my footsteps, hoping to catch a few coins fall from my purse. You think that's an over-exaggeration? Why do you think you want to be powerful or popular? Why do you want prominence of any kind? Do you know why you want prominence of any kind? Because you believe that somehow or other the choice that said, if I could be prominent, no one could punish me. And if they did, I could punish them back in equal measures, and they would always regret what they did. How many of you wish people would regret what they did to you? Get your hands in the air. Absolutely. Look what they did. So when they did that, what were my choices? Fight or flight. Yes or no? So are these my choices? Please, this is a big question at this point in the talk. I know you can't fully accept this. I get it. But are these my? God, I gotta do something else. I gotta figure out where to go. I gotta. It's an Italian choice maker. By the way, do you know I just realized this, the word mafia means my family, my familia. I never knew what mafia was. I was born in the mafia. My family was a gang. Every family's a gang that are brought together under a certain set of beliefs that believe as long as everybody accepts this is true and nobody steps outside of that narrow range of choices that the family themselves didn't make. Step outside of that, you're gone. You are, what's the word in proper? You're canceled. Please, God, let me be canceled. But not canceled just from the world. The world I'm afraid of being canceled in doesn't exist without my dependency on it validating me. So please, God, help me cancel the world that I have believed in and chose to see that those choices were not mine, that they were in fact binary. They were fight or flight. And if neither one of those choices, can any choice, fight or flight, bring an end to the fear that produces the need for that choice? Can it? Well, now what's going to happen? I love the truth. One day you'll love the fact that everything about the light isn't trying to take something from you. It's trying to show you this minuscule little space that you call the kingdom of yourself as being a bunch of walls that never stop closing in on you because conditions keep proving the kingdom's false, but that then you participate in closing those walls in sooner so that you can begin to realize that you were never trapped in anything. Isn't it extraordinary? If you can see me, maybe I should slow down and use a different tone of voice so it gets through to you. Isn't it amazing to even suspect that the only thing I'm a captive of are my own choices and my identification with them? And if I'm trapped by my own choices and my identification with them, are they my choices? Are they? Can't be, can they? You can't serve two masters. You'll love one and despise the other. When you make a choice for yes, can you make a choice for this is what I'm going to do without the fear of this is what I don't want to do? Or do they go together? What happens if I see all of this as true? It is true. Can we agree on that out loud, yes or no? Man, I'm a choice-making machine. You go out to dinner, you go out to lunch, you're with your family. Can you not see how many choices? You've got multiple choice. And you know why you have multiple choice? Because you have multiple personalities. And each personality is a derivative of some choice you didn't know was made for you. And the more you glom onto that choice, the more identified you are. So you've got legion. So what am I going to do? How can I, if I actually understand this compulsive feeling that I feel like I have to make, what happens if I see that it can never deliver me, not just into what I hope is true, deliver me from myself? Because in the end, isn't that what every choice is that we're trying to make? Isn't it? Let this choice bring me to something that delivers me from this dark moment in my life. Which means something that's choosing believes that life is nothing but a dark moment that can be escaped or otherwise brought into the light, so that by doing so I never have to face another moment I don't want to face. Is this life full of darkness, or is every teaching always saying the same thing? How do I find out if this is true? How do I enter into this transactional wisdom where I understand I go before you to make the crooked places straight? Doesn't mean I'm waiting for you there. It means I'm with you as you start to make those kind of mistakes. And I show you that this choice you're making is a mistake. And in the revelation, at least offer you the opportunity to not make that choice again. Yes? Can you see that there's no way I'm ever going to make any kind of true new choice if I don't see everything we've outlined so far? We're working towards the exercise and a summary now. Yes or no? So I know the old choices. I know the old choices to some extent. But the real difficulty is that I'm often engaged in not just making the choice, but actualizing it prior to even me knowing that I've done so. Fact or not? Do you understand the question? You look at me in a certain way, and before I know it, something has judged you. It is determined why you need to be judged. It's asked, what do I need to do about your attitude? And I'm already expressing with my body, heart, and mind all that is actualized by that reaction and a series of choices leading to a conclusion I didn't even come to myself. I'm literally like a puppet of some kind. That's not a pretty picture, is it? You're sitting there, you're decked out in your nines, you've got all your makeup on. Charlie, do you have your makeup on at home? I got all this stuff going, and I got this kind of car, and I carry myself in a certain way. Puppets. Puppets. Choices that pull strings, that promise to save me from the very thing that as I try to enact strength, courage, wisdom, I'm doing so because a choice has been made for me that says you have to actualize this. You don't have to actually be it. And when you aren't actually what you actualize, is that not the same as the ground of every moment that challenges that image of yourself, proving that you're nothing like what you've imagined yourself to be? Do you understand the question? Isn't that so? So the first thing that has to happen, and it can't happen all at once. That's another thing. I choose a happy meal. You understand what that means? I choose a happy meal. What would Jesus do? That's a happy meal. Except there's no happiness in it. There's just the momentary consolation of the new identity born of a choice that said, go back into the store of choices, pull out this content that you can identify with, and then when you identify with it, by God, if you identify with it, it must be you. No. Who you are doesn't need to identify with anything. Who you are already holds the Christ in it. Already holds what is divine and true and timeless and unfearing. The new choice has to be, God help me. I have to start wanting as best I can to use the reaction to awaken me to the choices that appear in the very moment of that reaction. Yes or no, we looked at it. A reaction comes. Right now I have no awareness whatsoever of the choices that are born in that reaction. Why? Because the self that's reacting and the condition it blames for what it's doing are a singularity. I see myself as something separate from that moment, and therefore I must make new choices to save myself from it. We're looking at this and saying, wait a minute. Can I, in the moment of that reaction, how many of you suspect, if you're not already having one, even as I'm speaking, that you will have another word I've never used in a talk, a bevy of negative reactions before the day passes? Two new words, flummoxed and bevy. I am a bevy of flummoxed choices. Thank you very much. Do you suspect you're going to have a negative reaction? Are you having one now out there? Yes, I am. I don't like you. Thank God I don't care what you like and don't like. By the way, that's freedom. That's transactional wisdom. Freedom is the result of a transactional understanding where you realize that who you are does not depend on the choices others make. I have to stop somehow long enough to realize, long enough to enter into, okay, nice deep breath. I want to kind of expand this picture for a minute. For us, doesn't it seem like there's no space at all between the moment we don't want and our reaction to it? Yes? Now, in one respect, in a higher world, there is no space between what is active and what it acts upon. They are a singularity. Active and passive are a complementary set of opposites. They do not exist apart from each other. So that whatever, in quotes, happens is instantaneously registered by something that has seen it happen. You would never know something has happened unless there was something in you that registered it happening. That's a singularity, and it is timeless, I might add. But enter into this mix of the will of the divine on the passive will of the earth, on this conditioned, incomplete nature, enter into that moment that is the perfect revelation of both forces. Enter into that something that goes what? I don't like the reaction I'm having. Meaning something sets itself outside of the moment of this transactional wisdom. Oh, I wish to God I was able to express this to you. When you have a revelation of something, how many of you have had a revelation of something in yourself that in the moment you saw it, you went like this? What else is there to look at? Yes or no? What can I do? Where can I go? What can I eat? What can I buy? How can I lose weight? What's wrong with them? In that moment, the transactional wisdom born of something active on something in you waiting to be touched by that light, is that not a singularity? And is there a choice to be made out of transactional wisdom? Is there a choice to be made in that moment? Or is that whole moment the choice of something divine? And you're invited into it as a participant in a revelation that brings forth a new conception. Can you see this with me? But what do you and I do in that moment? Everything but. What we're looking at here is to start to understand I have to be at least willing to pause long enough to come to some kind of interior stop. Wait a minute. Another expression I've never used in a talk before. When you have a reaction, slow your roll. Slow your R-O-L-L and slow your R-O-L-E. Because isn't there an immediate roll that comes out of that reaction? And who chose that roll? I didn't. How do I know? Because the roll that was given to me to choose then rolled over me in a series of bad choices, all in an attempt to do what? To escape the role that something chose for me. You mustn't forget the little feeling that you have of understanding what I'm describing to you. Because if you can have some of that, then what can happen? I can start to have one of these habitual reactions that I always have. Can't escape them. You mustn't try to escape the reactions. You can't. What you must do is begin to realize that there is something being given to you in the moment of that reaction. And that understood properly, you can start to realize, wait a minute, maybe the first choice in this moment isn't the choices that I'm being offered, but rather the real choice isn't between yes, no, good, bad, go, don't go. Maybe the first real choice in this moment isn't to take either of these sides, but to use words, to take the high side in that moment. The side that the apprentice's wings lift him or her above the opposites that this consciousness, fight and flight, can do. To realize that freedom can't be found in a choice to fight or have flight. But freedom is in the recognition, now listen, please, because this is critical, I know I'm going to get these questions. You know, choices have to be made, don't they? So we're not saying there's not choices to be made. What we're saying is that our first choice, to use words, must be to be choiceless. You've heard this idea in spiritual terms before, a choiceless life. Nobody understands that. Maybe the men or women who actually teach it have some understanding of it. I can think of one for sure. But now you can start to understand, well, what would it be to be choiceless in this moment? Wait a minute. To be choiceless would be first to recognize that something is trying to be calm and collected, but the only way it knows where to buy calm and collected is in the store of choices. And there is nothing calm and collected in the store of choices, because everything in the store of choices are the congealed ashes of the choices that failed to free me before. Remember the Appy story? To see completely. To see completely is to understand immediately. To see completely is to have immediate understanding. Thought is not understanding. To see completely is to understand that thought is not understanding. It is a word about it that gives you the sense of someone who understands. And then to take that further, to realize that that kind of immediate understanding, the simplest expression would be what? When you pick up a hot stove, something, we've talked about it. Do you need a teacher? Who is your teacher in the moment when you pick up you reach in your excitement about the pizza, having forgotten you're in a mortal body because you're in a demon's lust. Here I am, I burn my hand. Do I need a teacher to say, do I need a teacher to go, you missed the wisdom? Or is the wisdom in the body? And the body expresses the fact that the choice I made was really stupid, and that I couldn't have been there in the moment when I made that choice, could I? Let us use that same thing. Start to feel the burning of your reactions. Start to feel the heat of your demands, of your beliefs. Just be aware of, tangibly. You wouldn't believe it if I told you that enlightenment actually starts in your body. Enlightenment actually starts in your body, because your body is already connected to all of the infinite influences that are planetary and celestial. Your body's connected. If it wasn't for that, there'd be no body. So let me at least be aware of what's moving through my body, because do not reactions create, this is another talk, does not every reaction create an instantaneous chemical response? Well, can I be aware of that? I may not be able to see, but I can be in my body, can't I? Or can I? Most of us aren't in our bodies. Why? Because we're filled with choices about how to escape the pain of being in what our body is telling us has happened. I keep trying to escape my own chemical complexity by diving deeper into more chemical complexity. And when my own chemicals aren't enough, by God, I'll find some other chemicals to put in my body. Won't I? Choose the high side. Choose the high side. Here I am, I'm feeling torn. Something's tearing on me. Do you feel that from time to time? If something's feeling torn and tearing on me, what is it that's torn and tearing on me? Whatever I was identified with before that created the choices that it did to escape being torn and frightened the moment before. To see all that at once. And what have you got? Now you're the embodiment of wisdom. And you have the opportunity to at least see that, you know what, I know what is true. God help me to do what is true. I understand. I am as best I can. I will never again let a fear, doubt, or worry make a choice for me. That doesn't mean there won't be choices that have to be made when I feel fear, doubt, and worry. It just means that the first thing I'm going to do is understand the real choice. In fact, the real crucifixion is to lay down my life in that moment and accept the revelation of seeing that nature trying to choose its way into freedom. That nature has its own will. Its will is not to grant you freedom, but to use the freedom you've got to ensure that it reincarnates itself, which it does every time you embrace its choice. Choices have to be made, but make them awake, make them aware of yourself, and aware of the consequence of identifying with that choice, even if there's no other choice to make in that moment. Are we clear on this? Let's take a break. Come back and have our dialogue.
All right, everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our class. We are going to get started here with our Q&A in just a moment. Before we do, I just want to give you a couple of quick announcements. So let me share my screen here so you can see a few things. Just give me a second. And there we go. All right, so if you're on our email list, you will always get notices about upcoming events and things that are going on here at the foundation. So if you're not on our email list, you can easily do that by going to guyfinley.org/newsletter, and that will get you signed up. And one of the things, like I said, that you'll see when you're on our newsletter list is that you will get emails alerting you to things coming up. And so I just want to let you know that this coming Saturday, so Saturday, May 25th, we have one of our monthly work party weekends where we do some work here on Saturday morning around the foundation just to clean up around the place and make things look spiffy. And then we have a lunch afterwards, a really nice lunch that's made homemade here. And after that lunch, we have an open discussion with Guy. It's just an informal Saturday lunch discussion. And you are welcome to tune in. Well, first of all, you're welcome to join us here in Merlin anytime you wish for any of these events that I'm going to be telling you about. But if you're not able to come here, you'll be able to watch that lunch discussion online on Facebook or YouTube. You can go to either of our channels and just tune in there at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So make a note about that. And again, watch your email for reminders. And then what else we have coming up here? Let me just change my screen. There you go. So in June, we have a couple of things. We have our annual Talks in the Pines workshop, which I'll tell you about that in a second. But leading up to that, Guy is going to be doing a special Zoom session, a Zoom workshop via the New Renaissance Bookshop in Portland. He won't be actually up in Portland. He'll just be over Zoom, but you are welcome to join us for that as well. So that is going to be Thursday, June 6th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And there's a small fee that goes to helping New Renaissance put on these events. You would go to guyfinley.org/ticket to go and get your ticket. It's only $10, but it's kind of a nice, if you've participated in those before, you know, that's a really nice, it's a little bit of a different venue for us, where if you're familiar with Zoom, you get to see all the folks who are tuned in, and it's a little bit more of a workshop-y type of feel. So you can, again, get your ticket for that if you want to join us at guyfinley.org/ticket. And we'll also be able to provide those of you who participate in that event, we'll provide you with the replay afterwards. And last but not least, I just mentioned that we have then our Talks in the Pines event after that in June. So this is our annual event. I think this is the 25th annual event, and it will be June 21st to the 23rd. It's always such a nice opportunity to come here and be here in person. If you haven't heard Guy speak in person before, there's nothing like it. Be with those of us who study here in person regularly, you know, just kind of meet the longtime students and just really immerse yourself in your higher learning for 3 days. It's a great event, and you can find out more about it by going to guyfinley.org/tips, TIPS. And again, all of these are also just on our events page on our website, and you will get reminders as we get closer to all of those. So just wanted to make sure you know about some special things coming up. All right, I think we're ready to get started with our Q&A with Guy. So let's go ahead and bring him on. You'll need to switch the A10. There you go. That was just a little note for my video girls. So Guy, are you ready to go, or do you have something you'd like to start with?
Nope. All good whenever we have anyone.
All right, let me just see if we've got any hands up. Cece, your hand is up, but it's been up for a while, so I'm going to lower your hand. But if you did wish to speak with Guy, go ahead and raise your hand again, and I'll get you in here. In the meantime, Claudia has raised her hand, so I'm going to go ahead and bring her on, and we'll get started with Claudia.
Good.
Hi, Guy. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this short, but I really think this relates to everything you said today. So this week I had a couple of days of work, and one of those days I really didn't feel like going anywhere and didn't have anything to do, and immediately my head started telling me, just coming up with a list of things to do. I could go shopping, I could go outside, and but I didn't want to do anything, and I just started feeling guilty about it. And that feeling is very familiar to me since childhood. But this time, I was able to see that what was happening was that my that part of me, that mind, was not happy with the moment wasn't enough. It wanted to extract some value out of that moment, like life itself wasn't enough.
Right.
And it wanted to get something out of, like, what else, like it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
It just wanted. And I don't know, but it was just something violent about it that I felt like like a slave to it in that moment. And then all of a sudden, I also saw this childhood memory of me having that same feeling as a child. And it happened. I remember it happened right after watching a TV show of these children, like dancing for this TV show.
Okay.
And I realized it was the same thing.
Yes. Yes. Is there a conclusion? Because I can see what you're saying, and I would speak to it unless there's anything else in terms of defining what it was that you saw, or are we looking at what we can share that might help us understand moments like that better? Is that what we're interested in?
Yeah, for sure. I would love your thoughts, but it was just really cool just being able to see,
Yeah.
that child element to what happened just this week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're surrounded we live within, and within us lives an immense mystery. Our mind isn't capable of penetrating. I think this is why Paul said, I see through a glass darkly. Because just like she was describing how she was kind of handed off from one identity to another, you could see that. And that each subsequent identity as it appeared with choices that identity wanted to make, but that out of those choices would appear another identity that was in conflict with the choices the former identity wanted to make. Ever so quickly, because I think it's funny, when I am working at home, writing, contemplating, oftentimes in the midst of doing that, I get like I haven't eaten, so I make myself something, a piece of toast or something. I go in the kitchen and I put a piece of toast in the toaster oven. And then I come back to go back to work while it's doing that. But I know myself well enough to know that when I get back to work, I'm going to forget that I have toast in the oven. It's just the way it is. I do what I do. I can't remember sometimes these things. And I'll tell Alexa, this little dealy bob on my desk, I'll say, Alexa, remind me in 5 minutes that my toast is in the oven. So this happened a couple days ago. I did that, and I'm sitting there writing, and Alexa goes, this is your reminder to check in 5 minutes your toast, and it got me angry. I got irritated with the reminder I asked for. So the crux of this issue here is that you have to understand that all of these experiences that, for instance, that Claudia is talking about are evidence of a certain mystery that by the grace of God alone comes into that darkness that is divided up into all these different eyes and has the momentary capacity to reveal to that consciousness in which the store of choices lives, that it's in a store of choices that can't change anything. And then that's where the mystery has to be left alone. Because for us, I want to understand. I want to know this. You can't know that. You can be given the momentary knowledge through that transactional wisdom that reveals to you these things as being true about yourself. And then let it have its own, its own yeast. Let it rise on its own, because it will. That's what faith is. You can't begin to put down the old choices, and more accurately, the old chooser, until it is clear enough to you that there is, in fact, that consciousness that you have called your own, and that what you have called your own is something that claimed you 1,000 years ago, and you never knew it. You never knew that your mother and father were claimed as their mother and father, as humanity is claimed. You never knew that, and suddenly there's a revelation. Something has a claim on my life. But I don't want what is old and tired and angry and hateful and greedy, insatiable. I don't want that to have a claim on my life anymore. Now, it's a miracle that I see it happened. Because who's there to see that if that's all there is that consciousness and those old choices? Boom. Paul on the road to Damascus. Suddenly I see, but I'm blinded by what I see, meaning I don't know what to make of what I see. I will let what showed me myself have its action. Then there will be transactional wisdom. Understood? I hope that's helpful, Claudia. All this is good. Don't you get faint of heart when you see it more clearly. On we go, Kate.
All right, I'm going to pop in here and read a question that came in a couple of days ago from Brian. But I also just want to invite everyone to participate. So if you're in the room, you can go up to the mic and speak if you wish. If you're on GoToWebinar, you can raise your hand. Just click or tap the hand icon once, and that lets me know you want to speak with Guy, like Claudia just did. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube, just send a note in the question or chat area, and I will grab that. All right, let's go to this question from Brian. Hello, Guy. During your talk on Wednesday, after something Ellen said, you said, and by the way, most of you know where the danger lies with everyone else that you know. That's what's called walking on eggshells, and shame on you for walking on eggshells ever. Cowards walk on eggshells. I'm wondering if you could explain this further. When should we still say something when we know we're walking on eggshells, and when is it cowardice? Many, many thanks.
I have to answer this in levels, and I just hope you can understand it. Is it a brave, wise, spiritual human being who walks on eggshells? Is it? The very appearance of the need to walk on eggshells is the appearance of a coward trying to figure out how to not rock the boat, let alone sink his or her own ship through some mistaken reaction they've had. Would it occur to me to walk on eggshells if I wasn't in the grip of a hardened reaction? Would it occur to me to walk on eggshells if I weren't suddenly in the grip of some hard reaction saying, here's your choices? They begin with finding the right way to say, passively aggressively, I might add, what you want to say so this person realizes who and what they've been and what they've done to you. God, wouldn't it be nice? Look, I asked this question right at the start of the talk. I hope Brian, I said, can you imagine what this world would be like if everyone in this world knew that no matter how many times they walked on eggshells, they wouldn't be free of the fear of others? if every time I felt the need to validate or prove myself in some way, come off strong, cement my secure condition, if every time I felt the compulsion, and that's what it is, if every time I felt that compulsion, instead of going with the compulsion, I was present enough to recognize that something was trying to compel me to be, do, say, or possess something, what would happen if the whole world suddenly realized you can't get everybody to love what you love? Isn't that why you judge people, is they love the wrong thing? Isn't that what judgment is? They've done the wrong thing, and I know what is the right thing. That's why I judge you. I know it's right, you don't. What if the world was free of that mind that every time something rubs it the wrong way, chooses an action to take to make sure the person you've judged no longer upsets you? What would happen to the world? Would there be war? Could there be war? See, war is not a choice. It's chosen for us. And it's chosen for me as surely as it's chosen for this nation, as surely as it's chosen for everyone on this planet that sits at odds with each other. Why am I at odds with you? Because you've chosen something that I don't agree with. Now, you make a mistake if you think I say that you shouldn't stand up for what you think is right. Transactional wisdom places your understanding of what is true and good before you try to make others see what you call as true and good. So you act from what is true and good. Do you understand that? So Brian says, when should we say something when we know we're walking on eggshells? I keep coming back to the same thing. Somebody one time said to me, he found my patience to be extraordinary because I answer so many questions that are the same question over and over again. But see, and I tried to explain this, to me it isn't the same question because I'm not the same man that answered it yesterday. That's why you think things are the same, because you didn't change. What if my first responsibility wasn't to see that you and I got along, but rather that I was deciding to get along with what is true first, and that I let that act first for me, and that in doing so, the choice that I make wasn't my choice at all. Rather, I was relegating the choice to another order of understanding. That's what, you have this possibility. That's what choiceless is. Choiceless is allowing something to reveal to you these binary choices as being impossible to produce the peace they promise. And to find that if I just let them do what they're meant to do, which is to reveal this character to me, that in the moment of the revelation of this unconscious character, lo and behold, I'm transformed. I am brought into a place of transcendence. Because I'm no longer trying to trample or prove to someone else the truth. I know. I'm free. You think freedom is something you're going to get to. Didn't the master show that freedom, that the wind wasn't something that was there just because he thinks it's there? It has to be instrumented, doesn't it? You must be the instrument of the light of God, of the light of this awareness. And when you are that instrument, it's laying it out for you. So that if in fact you see the truth that I'm about to walk on eggshells, and then you walk on eggshells, you can't stand the crunching underneath your own feet. And you realize, oh my God, I didn't walk the walk I wanted to. I walked on the eggshells I was compelled to walk on. Please God, let me see more about this nature. Then you have a right choice and a right action and a right understanding. That's the answer, Brian. Terry's on stage. I think it's Terry, I'm not sure.
Hi everyone, my name is Terry. So when Guy was speaking today, I thought of an experience I had yesterday that I thought fit well. And then at the break, the choice that Terry wanted to make was don't get up and share it because you need material for your talk on Friday, which is on this talk.
No, that's exactly right.
That's exactly right. And it like as if you don't have any material, right?
This is it. You're not getting anything more than this. That's it. Yeah.
You're cut off. Yeah. So here I am. So yesterday, I was working with one of my special needs kids, and what I typically do is when I come to the home, the parents share things about this child that will help me be able to work with him. And so they dropped what you would call a bombshell, and as they were talking, each of them were taking turns talking, and the choice that Terry wanted to make was this cliche comment, make the cliche comment. And I saw it, and I didn't know what to say. I honestly did not, speechless, which is shocking, right?
Well, let us have a moment to take that in.
Speechless, and I just waited. I honestly just waited because I didn't know what to do. And then just out of it does come out of the blue, because that's what it felt like. Out of the blue, there was just this movement. Like, there was no Terry. There was just something that just spoke through my heart, said what it said. And I was looking at the father at the time, and it totally moved him because his whole face emoted,
Relaxed.
Yes, and it was, you could just see that there was no choice at all in any of it. There was no self there that was wanted to protect his job, wanted to defend anything. It was just this beautiful thing that took place, and those are such great experiences because you get a taste of what it really is like to be an instrument of the moment and to do good for this world.
The onset of wisdom that is actualized becomes faith. That's where faith is born, is in this transactional wisdom, this moment of relationship in which I am first tempted to just jump in there and be clever Terry, but enough is present to recognize that isn't the appropriate place or time. That's not even the appropriate person. And then I lay myself down because the choice in that moment isn't to continue being Terry. The minute I lay her down, lo and behold, a new order of Terry already there, waiting in the wings, not in the store of choices, but another level of consciousness, then it's there. And then I'm given to say what I need to say in that moment, and it can't be said better in that moment than it's said. That experience will help you the next time that happens. May we all wish for a more speechless Terry, don't we? Katie.
Alrighty, we have Cher with her hand up, and then I have a question from Roy. So we'll go to Cher first, and then I'll read the question.
You got me, babe.
Hey, Guy.
Hi.
Oh, wow. That's just, I feel like a drum roll right now. That was a beautiful story, Terry. Thank you. Thank you so much, Guy, for all your talks. Yeah, that I'm speechless.
Yes.
Or the words that you put all into this, or maybe it's just coming through you. It's just, I'm in just awe half the time.
What a great place. Most of us are, as Terry was saying, at first I'm terrified not to have a speech. Meaning I'm terrified not to be the speaker of some choice of material that I'm going to dispel and dispense amongst the world so that they might be lifted elevated. And then suddenly something renders me speechless. Something like Paul renders me blind. I can't see the path forward. When you have epiphanies, a true epiphany, isn't it a moment of being speechless? Meaning, isn't it a moment that thought isn't necessary because wisdom has completely filled the void with everything necessary for me to understand all that I can about myself and this moment in the same moment. That's what this speechlessness is. I live to be rendered deaf, dumb, and blind by truth. That's the most beautiful thing that can happen to a human being. Not to see with my eyes and speak from my mouth the choices that are made for me by something that is trying to constantly save itself, because in a moment where I'm truly speechless looking up at a night sky, I am in that moment in the realization that there's no one there to be saved. There's no one there to make choices to deliver myself from the darkness. I'm already at one with my Father. I'm already at one with the light that reveals this relationship to me. So share, yes, just stick with it, share. Stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. Work with this till your body drops. Work with this while your body's dropping. You will never regret that choice. On we go, Kate.
All right, I'm going to read this question that came in from Roy. We have about 20 minutes left, no hands in the queue, no other questions. So if anyone wants to join in, now's the time. But let's go ahead to this question from Roy. He says, Guy, I'm reading your book, Relationship Magic. When we feel someone has let us down, are you saying it's the opportunity to look within ourselves? For instance, I sometimes feel I'm not getting enough attention from the person I'm dating. What is it saying about me? That I'm self-centered?
No. Do you know you can never have a real relationship with any human being that you want something from? Love is about giving, not wanting. Love is about sacrificing, not asking others to sacrifice for you. And in the end, love is always a transactional act of wisdom. Because love, for instance, Roy, lets you realize to some extent, otherwise you wouldn't have put it in the question, I have demands. Now, I've never questioned my own demands because they're nothing but the most reasonable of things to consider for everyone. The problem with you is that I guess I have to write down my demands for you so that you always carry them out. Mach schnell, you know? Then I start realizing, well, wait a minute, where are these demands coming from? Who's making these demands? If I can see that they're problematic to the relationship. I remember lots of times in past relationships, you ever got to the point, especially if you were ever jealous in a relationship, you thought that the jealousy could somehow get the person to move on to the other side and prove to you your worth. Where the more jealous you were, the more you pushed away the person you hoped would love you. So jealousy makes choices, doesn't it? Would I make choices to push you away when I'm trying to attract you? No, I'm in the hands of something that cannot see, not for its life, what it's doing to itself. We started the talk with that. The life of learning is going to go into the apparel business. We're going to make sweatshirts. The first one is going to say something like, maybe we'll just leave nothing on the front of it. And only you will know how clever it is. You'll say to somebody, don't you want to know what's on the front of my sweatshirt? There's nothing on the front. Exactly. It's deep. So you get it, Roy. I trust you get it, man. Leah is coming up.
Hi, my name is Leah. So I love this talk about choices. You know, in the world you hear, money doesn't bring happiness, but it does bring more choices.
Yeah.
So this nature tells us that choices are valuable. And I love how you said trapped by my choices and my identification with them. Mm-hmm. because the more choices, there's also more identity.
And the more identity, the more conflict there is with everything that challenges it.
Yes. And so I had this flash of, you talked about multiple choice, multiple personalities. And multiple personalities is Leah packing. Because Leah packs for the multiple personalities. Who's going to show up on any given day in any given circumstance, and what is she going to want to wear and feel like in that moment?
Is that why you take 20 bags for an overnight stay?
That's why I take 20 bags for an
My
overnight
God,
stay.
I wondered, that caravan of cars for your luggage.
And I thought, so that's Leah's multiple personalities. Then I thought, I know people with 4 homes, and it's exactly the same. What home do I want to be in because of how I feel when I'm wearing that home with those people? It's just a different eye.
It is.
Whether it's an outfit or am I going to stay at the beach or the desert or the, Aspen this weekend? It's all the same, just at a different scale.
I just wish I had a different bed.
So I look forward to my next packing to see that as it's this nature feeding these multiple personalities.
Yeah, you'll learn. You have to see. Look, many years ago, maybe some of you remember. Do you think people spend a lot of time with their hair? Yes or no? So one day I realized, I was pretty attached to my hair when I had it. So I shaved my head. Why would he do that? What have you done? You don't look good. Grow it back, quick. Why would a man do something like that? So that he might see all of his attachments. Again, I don't like to use myself as an example. I really don't. We're all unique. And I was completely disfigured when I got run over by a car. Nobody wanted me to stay with my face scarred. Nobody. Even people that weren't part of my family were offering to pay for the plastic surgery. That's a God's honest truth. Because I was so handsome before. I wouldn't let anybody do that. I wanted to know, see, you don't know, like, if you're a really big fat person or you're scarred or you're misshapen, something's happened to you. Children look at people like that because they don't look like they're supposed to look. Most of you have no idea what it's like to be looked at by somebody as if something's wrong with you, to see them staring at you. So you can never know the compassion I might add to not do that or why people go through what they do. These are things that you can make new choices about so that you can work in these opposites in order to discover what's been working you over and calling itself you and the choices it makes for you. But don't shave your head, okay? Actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea. It'd be a trip. I'm going to stick with this idea. Yeah, okay. Over to you, Kate.
I have no hands up, no questions. Anyone else in the room?
Got no deeds to do, no classes to keep. I'm off to sleep. Do your work. Remember yourself. Bye.